Hello and welcome. This is Basic Technology for Jss1 third term 4 lesson. I'm Kwasi Barida. Today we are going to be treating the topic scale drawing, and by the end of this lesson you should be able to describe scale drawing. You should be able to reduce and enlarge the size of objects, and you should be able to divide a line into a given number of equal parts. So let's get started. Scale drawing. Scale drawing is a drawing that shows a real object with its accurate size, either reduced or enlarged by a certain amount called scale. As a result, the proportion of the drawing is still the same as that of the real objects. So in scale drawing, it's a comparison between the drawing and the real objects. It's a comparison between the drawing and the real objects. So the proportion is exactly the same. The difference is that it's either the drawing is smaller than the real objects, or the drawing is larger than the real objects. So in the case where the drawing is smaller than the real object, that is a reduction. But when the drawing is larger than the real object, that is an enlargement. But mind you, the proportion is exactly the same. The only difference is that the size has changed. So for example, you have a building. So if you want to do a sketch of that building, you can't do the exact size of that building on any piece of paper. There's no piece of paper that can do that. So you want to still keep the proportion intact, but you want a smaller size of that same building. That is a smaller drawing of that building, exactly the same thing, but the size is going to be smaller. So that's going to, so the scale of that one is going to be a reduction. But then again, if let's say you want to do a drawing of let's say an ant, for example, you want to do the drawing of an ant. You know, the ant is very small, so you can't draw that. You can't draw it with that. You can't draw the ant with that its size. So what you do is to get a proportion. You can get the length in comparison to the length and the length of the ants and the breadth. So having gotten that, then you want to do an enlargement. So all you need to do now is to multiply the based on the scale you want to get the scale you want to get your drawing. Let's say you want your drawing now to be 10 times the size of the ant. So the dimension you got for the ant, you multiplied by 10. So doing that, you've done a scale drawing of that ant. The proportion is exactly the same, but the difference is that the size is different. The scale is shown as the ratio of the dimension of the drawing to the dimension of the real objects. That is drawing ratio objects. So that's how the scale that's how the scale is being represented, as the scale of a drawing with respect to the original or the real object. It's written as the dimension of the drawing ratio the dimension of the real object. For example, we have 1:10. That means the drawing is 10 times smaller than the real objects. Then you have another one, 2:1, which means the drawing is twice bigger than the real objects. So if, for example, you have an object that is let's say 100, or let's say 200, that's the length. Or okay, let me give you a better example. Let's say you have a rectangle that has a dimension 200 by 50. That's dimension 200 by 50. So if this object now is to be reduced and the scale for that is 1:10, what you're going to do is to divide the 200 by 10. So dividing the 200 by 10 is going to give us 20. Then you divide the 50 by 10, which is going to give us 5. So that's going to give us the dimension of the object to be drawn. So that's for the reduction. Then for increments, if you want to increase the size, so let's work with that one as well. 200 by 50. So in this case now you're going to multiply by 2. You're going to multiply by 2 to get the size of the drawing. So you multiply by 2. 200 by 2 is 400, and 50 by 2 is 100. So that one, the dimension is going to be 400 by 100. So that's for the scaling. So scale drawing is different from ordinary drawing or sketching because it provides an accurate representation of the object under consideration in terms of dimension. You know, for ordinary drawing you may not bother yourself about the proportion. You can just, maybe you do a drawing that's smaller than the original one, or you do a drawing that is larger than the original one, but the proportion of the drawing as compared to the real objects is not the same. So that's the major difference between scale drawing and the ordinary drawing or sketching. So now let's see an image, just like the illustration I gave. That's about the rectangle. Let's see an image that describes or that explains the enlargement and reduction of an object. So reduction and enlargement of objects. So let's look at the first one we have. The first we have is a block of wood, showing full size 1:1. So the dimension of the block of wood is 60 millimeters by 40 millimeters. So let's work with this one as the original size of the object. So now if we want to do a reduction of these objects, let's say let's want to do a reduction with a scale 1:4, what is it going to be? Remember, 1:4 means it's a reduction, so that means the dimension of this other one is going to be smaller as compared to the dimension of the real object. So since it's 1:4, it means we are going to divide the original one by 4. So if we divide 60 by 4, it's going to be 15. Then we'll divide 40 by 4, and it's going to be 10. So the dimension of the new object now is going to be 15 by 10, 15 millimeters by 10 millimeters, and the scale is 1:4. So you see it's the same block, but it's redrawn to a scale of 1:4, and the dimension 15 millimeters by 10 millimeters. So that's for the reduction. Then for the enlargement, so let's assume, okay, we want to do an enlargement of 2:1. So for 2:1, what that means is that we are going to multiply the size or the dimension of the real objects by 2. So if we do that, there's going to be 60 multiplied by 2, which is 120, and 40 multiplied by 2, which is 80. So the dimension of the new objects now for the enlarged one is going to be 120 millimeters by 80 millimeters, and the scale is going to be 2:1. So you can see that's how it looks like. You can see the three objects, their proportion is exactly the same. The only difference is their size. Their sizes are different, but their proportion are the same. So that's how scale drawing goes. So that's it for the scale drawing. Then next, let's see how to divide a line into a given number of equal parts. How to divide a line into a given number of equal parts. So for us to do that, let's take note of these steps. The first thing to do to divide a line into equal number of parts, or into a given number of equal parts, first is to draw the line. So get a line, and let's say it's a line AB as the two ends of the line AB. So after drawing the line AB, the next is at the point A with a convenient angle, draw another line AO. That's from A, you draw another line with a convenient angle to the line line AB. So you draw another one AO. So I haven't gotten that one. The next thing you're going to do is, with a pair of compass, you pick any convenient length. And now this length is going to determine the number of equal parts you're going to divide your line into. So if you want to divide your line into more equal parts, you want to divide it into more parts, you either make the line longer, or the length you're going to make now is going to be smaller. So the next thing you have to do is, with a pair of compass, you pick any convenient length from point A and step out 5 times. So this means we are going to divide our line into 5 equal parts. We want to divide the line into 5 equal parts, so we are going to step out 5 times. So if you want to divide the line into 10 equal parts, you step out 10 times. If you want to divide it into 4 equal parts, you step out 4 times. If it's into 50 equal parts, you step out 15 times. So after doing that, after stepping out 5 times, the next thing you have to do is to join point 5. That is the fifth point you make on the line AO rather. The 5th point you make, the 5th mark you make. So from that mark, and that's, mind you, that's your O. So from that mark you join the points O and B. So it's either, you say it's 5 and B or O and B. I would rather call it OB. So you get the line OB, join the line OB. And after joining the line OB, the next thing you have to do is to draw parallel lines at points 1 to 4. Remember, you've drawn the one already from 5 to B. So the next thing you're going to do now is that you're going to draw a parallel line from that point, the point 1 to from point 1 to the line AB. And that line now is going to be parallel to the line OB. So the lines you're going to be drawing now, they're going to be parallel to the line OB, and they're all parallel lines to themselves as well. So if you do that, then you should have successfully divided the line AB into equal parts, into 5 equal parts. So let's see a little illustration of that. So we have our line AB. So that's it. That's a horizontal line AB. You can make it a horizontal line. You can divide a horizontal line or a vertical line. So whichever kind of line you want to divide, you follow exactly the same steps, and it's going to give you the same results. So we are working with the horizontal line. So you get your line AB. So after drawing your line AB, the next thing you say to do is to draw another line with a convenient angle from point A. So that's going to be AO. You can see that one. So that's the AO. Then the next is, with your pair of compass, you pick any convenient length from point A and step out 5 times. Step out 5 times. So with your compass, you make those points, you make those marks, so you can see them, equal marks So assuming, let's say, the convenient length you choose is 5 millimeters, so it's going to be 5 millimeters apart as a marks you've made, 5 millimeters apart into 5 different places. So I haven't done that. Then the next thing you're going to do is to join point 5. Although I didn't number the lines, I didn't number the points, or have the point O there, so that's why I decided to choose O as the point there. So it's going to be OB. So if you do that, you have your points O and B joined together with a line. So you have your points OB, and the next thing you have to do is to draw parallel lines at points 1, 2, 3, and 4 to touch the line AB. So these lines now, they are parallel to the line OB. So if you do that, it's going to give you this. So if you do that correctly, following the steps correctly, and mind you, when making the marks, you have to do it accurately, because that's what's going to determine if the line is going to be divided into 5 equal parts. If you make any error when dividing the line OA into the 5, when making the marks, if maybe at one point you have 5 millimeters, the other one you have 5.1 millimeters, something like that, if you make any slight error, it's going to affect the dividing of the lines into equal parts. The lines, the line is not going to be, the parts now, they are not going to be equal. So if you want to get your parts equal, you have to be very careful when making the mark using the compass. So if you do that, then you're going to get your line AB divided into 2 equal parts. So that is it for scale drawing. But before we leave, let's do a little summary of what we've treated so far today. So first of all, we described scale drawing, explaining that scale drawing is a kind of drawing that compares the drawing on paper with the original objects. So it's either it's been reduced, as the drawing on paper is reduced as compared to the real objects, or enlarged as compared to the real object. But what makes it different from ordinary drawing and sketching is that the proportion is exactly the same. So next we talked about the enlargement and reduction of objects. So how to enlarge and reduce objects. So if you have an object with a dimension 100 by 50, and you want to do a reduction of that object, and you want it to be to the ratio 1 to 10, all you need to do is to divide the dimension of the original object by 10. So if it's if the dimension is 100 by 50, so you're going to divide the 100 by 10 to get 10, and divide the 50 by 10 to get 5. So if you do that, the dimension of the drawn object, or the drawing, is going to be 10 by 5 millimeters. So that's for the reduction. Then for the enlargement, for reduction you divide, for enlargement you multiply. So if you want to enlarge that same dimension, let's say 100 by 50, you multiply. Let's say you want to enlarge it by 4, you want it to be in the ratio 4 to 1. So in that case, you're going to multiply by 4. So 100 by 4 is 400, 50 by 4 is 200. So in that case, the dimension of the drawing now is going to be 400 by 200 millimeters. Then next, we learned how to divide a line to a given number of equal parts, and we listed the steps on how to do that. So that is it for today's lesson. I hope you've learned something. So until we see again in our next class, thank you very much, and God bless you. Bye bye.